And really appreciate it's very timely because we got a really important thing that's happening this week. And we also have a book that was recently introduced by our guest, Julian Gresser. So, Julian is awesome. And let me just tell you a little bit about him. He's an international attorney, he's a professional negotiator, inventor, and a recognized expert on East Asia, and the CEO of both Big Heart Technologies. And he's also on the board of bbiland.org. And he can tell you a little bit about what that's all about, but it has to do with broadband, not surprisingly, because that's what our main topic is. So he's been an attorney. He's traveled all over the world. He's worked as a visiting professor at Harvard Law School and also in Japan, in Kyoto at Doshisha University. Julian, welcome. Come on board.
Thank you very much, Paul and Mark. This is an exciting show. I hope I can contribute usefully to it.
You
One
will.
of the prerogatives of advancing age is you get to write your autobiography. Evolutionary values for an age in crisis. And there's a lot more on my website, which is justclick.earth. So I want to focus today looking at the great panorama of lawsuits and controversies surrounding the wireless industry and the telecom industry, manifested in specific cases that I can report to you from the trenches, to ask ourselves, what are the deep values that motivate these telecom companies and the legislators, many of whom are captive? And I will say that transcends political party, because in our cases, the Democrats have been at least as supportive of the telecom companies as the Republicans. This is truly an issue that crosses party lines because they're all aligned against the public, with a modest exception from what we'll discuss in H3557, which is one of about 7 bills that are just now finding their way in the Congress. But it really represents the core of what we're dealing with here. This is an ethos, and underlining this ethos is a single value proposition, and that is might makes right. We, the telecom companies, the wireless companies, we've got the power, and who cares about the public? That is their fundamental proposition. Now, what are some of the characteristics of this shareholder value first that really says the goal of a corporate activity is to extract resources and profits from communities? And these are centralized, gigantic corporations. Communities serve the corporate interest, and at the same time impose all the healthcare costs, the health costs, the environmental costs, the social costs, the privacy costs, and their risks on these local communities. So the model that we're facing in all these cases, and I will list a few of them, is a top-down control mechanism to survey and disempower local communities. It does so by stripping away civil liberties, the integrity of balance with nature and the environment. It suppresses the rights, particularly of vulnerable populations, the poor, disabled, children, minorities. It corrupts. It has to corrupt truth. Now, why is that? Because they cannot really defend the value proposition that we will extract all the profits and saddle you with all the costs, and we've got the power, and who cares about you? So what must they do to justify? Because it is an indefensible value proposition. They must assert what is the opposite of what is true. They must assert that it's safe, and they must engage the government agencies, federal, state, and local, to confirm that it's safe, or at least that the risks are unknown. They brush aside the Americans for Disability Act and say it doesn't apply. They assert that this is climate change, these technologies and products, which have undergone no risk assessment, are climate change friendly, durable, energy efficient, fast, and private. We are dealing really with a version of the Ministry of Truth, as described by George Orwell in 1984, where actually it is the manipulation of truth, the very opposite, where might makes right. It's accompanied by disdain for existing laws and protections. The assertion, for example, of blanket categorical exemptions. The Congress now in HR 3557 is really dispensing with the National Environmental Policy Act and the Historical Sites Protection Act. In the matter of satellites, which were deeply involved, the FCC has taken the position that blanketing the entire, allowing these satellites to set up low orbit, these companies to set up low orbit satellites all around the world, supported by base stations without any kind of radiation hazard reports, actually looked into it, and one was manipulated and unsigned and received the FCC permission. They're right now in the Congress, lobbying the Congress to support their position, legally untenable, that that FCC satellite program is categorically exempt from NEPA's requirements to assess environmental impacts. The whole model is based on speed, the very opposite of what communities need to live quietly and peacefully with nature, to accelerate the process, to ram it through so that no one has an opportunity to pause, to slow down, to think, to discern, to weigh, to balance, and wisely decide. And finally, it's done by stealth. As we've seen in our case in Los Angeles, as we see now in AB 965, which is attempting to basically gut CEQA. In Los Angeles, it's done through illegal delegations of power. The trend now, particularly epitomized in HR 3557, is to shift this all to make it more centralized under the federal control, under the control of these centralized committees, and strip away the powers of local communities to own, to manage, to control, and to profit by their own local infrastructure. This is a fundamental shift in violation of the Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the Ninth Amendment to the Constitution, which protects the civil rights of people and communities, and the rights of states under the 10th Amendment. It's unconstitutional, fundamentally unconstitutional, and it's violative of human rights. This whole business, which we see in 965 in California, of batching, it makes absolutely no sense to batch these projects together. I'm saying that if you cut to the quick and you understand the deep values and you ask and demand, what is the value proposition? You tear away the mask of all these false claims, deceptions, contrivances, and manipulations. It's indefensible. Local communities today have legal rights to determine their own destinies. It is a matter of choice. They can choose to live closely with nature. They can choose to care for each other. They can choose to own their own infrastructure. They can choose to protect their communities against this onslaught. So I have a final message in bringing this down to a single act that could start to turn the tide is when 965, AB 965 arrives at your desk, Governor Newsom, veto it. And you will be following a precedent you yourself have set, as you wisely did with AB 556 in 2021. This single act could turn the tide.
Amen, Reverend Gresser. Thank you very much. And bless you, sir. Where can we vote for you? Are you leading something?
Yeah, I'm just about to announce my presence.
Very good.
That's a joke.
No, but honestly, you're doing great lawsuits, and you're touching the sky. You're touching all the way to Washington, D.C. with the FDA. You're touching Lake Tahoe, and you're trying to save the people in L.A. County. So we want to thank you very much for all of your efforts. And it's a team of you guys that are working with other attorneys. But you've got a lot of irons in the fire, and you're really defending the rights of the people. So we want to thank you for all that work.
Yes,
I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Julian. I know it's tough work. For the audience, the bill that has been referred to is a state of California bill that is within the state's government. Of course, outside the U.S., we do have some international audience. I think it's still the most populous state in the nation. One of the largest economies in the world, actually, if it was its own nation. So it is a big bill. So thank you, Paul, for bringing Julie on board.
No problem. Do you have any questions for Julian though? Because he may have to pop out. So I just want to see if
one
you have anything.
was the nature of the impact on inner cities. One is why is it disproportionately a harsher impact there? And secondly, this just because maybe perhaps I haven't networked properly, are there advocates within inner cities trying to fight this? Or is it people from the outside saying, looking in, going, that's not going to be very good for them, and most inner cities are just unaware of what's happening? So that's two questions.
First of all, they are targeting these communities. Why are they doing that? Which is the first part of your question. The answer is these communities cannot afford, they depend upon affordable housing. They have no financial means to escape. It is critical and essential to this technology, particularly 5G, to densify these towers. So you have to, in order to bring the signal to the home or the target, you have to have multiple clustered towers. These communities survive on some sort of subsidy, but they have no way to escape. Their children cannot escape. They're not informed, so they're ideal targets. In New York, at least 16, now going on 20 of these communities have voted resolutions not to have any of these towers there. It is being done against their opposition. The key point and the huge value of your show is to bring this atrocity to the nation's attention.
I had no idea that they were having votes and that it was being overridden. Have you mentioned that, Paul? Or I know that's something you could add more to.
Yeah, well, I'm very familiar with what's going on, and I was just searching for a picture of it. I mean, you're used to some of these small cells and whatnot that I've shown you pictures of, and now take that thing and make it 4 times larger. Okay, it's just like a big, imagine a 24-inch wide cylinder that goes maybe 12 feet tall, and then it's stuck right there on maybe a 10-foot pole. And this is what's outside on the corners. It is very powerful. There are 5 sets of antennas in there. The amount of effective radiated power is off the charts. And so what can that do to people? Well, clearly their health goes south. It also sterilizes everyone, by the way. And so now you don't have a chance to procreate from generation to generation. Hey, that might be a goal here, right? But at the end of the day...
Is that true? Is that a proven fact, or is that a speculation?
No, that's true. Your sperm are going south, and it's for a number of reasons. But microwave radiation does it as well. If you want to have children, anybody online who's got, whether they're kids or their grandkids or even themselves are thinking about having children, get those cell phones out of the pockets. Yeah. I mean, you're just messing with your sperm right now, and you might need them to perform 2 or 3 years from now, and they might not be able to.
So, Mark, one other very important point to make: if you were for communities that want to defend themselves using the tort law, what is critical here, which is the major barrier, is what's called the dose effect. It's critical to be able to understand the level of radiation that's emitted from these towers, and it will all telescope on one legal principle, and that is who has the burden of proof. It is the duty and legal responsibility of the telecom industry and the wireless industry. It has the burden to show that its technology and its products, which, by the way, have never gone through any kind of conventional risk assessment, they have the burden to prove that it is safe. Business has looked at this. You may be aware that Swiss Re, Lloyd's of London, all these massive insurance companies that are very adept at actuarial risk assessment, not one of the big companies will insure the risks. None of them. So they all know it's deadly, but nobody will insure. So the industry has gotten away, and your show could be the Rubicon that starts to turn this around.
I only know of one other major category of product where manufacturers are not liable for the risks. It escapes me now what that is. I probably shouldn't say it if it comes to mind, but and that's strange.
Yes, if the product's really bad, then you got to limit the liability. That's kind of how it goes.
Yep. Wow.
All right. Listen, Julian, thank you so much.
Yes,
you gave us a lot of great information, and thank you for your address to Governor Newsom. That'll be perfect on the second take. Okay.
Thanks a lot. All the best to you both. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.